Welcome, Ross Wars, back to Across the Pond. It's been a few weeks, months since our last adventure, mainly because Nathan's now a multimedia personality, and it's hard to get him off of podcast nowadays. So, welcome all. How's the very wet English summer and Scottish summer been for you guys so far?
Go ahead,
yes, wet indeed. We don't normally get a little bit of summer in Scotland, but this has been extra wet. I think it's the wettest July on record, I heard. So we're not getting any of this global warming or this heat wave that you're getting in other countries, which is sad.
No. Certainly not getting the text in 105 degrees each day that I was listening to Matt the other day on that podcast with Shaq. So, yeah. Nathan, you're rooted to the country after you jet set the rail earlier in the year. You're firmly here for the English cricket season.
Yeah, exactly. In case any of you guys haven't really picked up, cricket is actually my first love in terms of sport. And I'm sure if they had an equivalent of fantasy football on the cricket scene, I would be much more involved in that than the NFL. But yeah, I play cricket through the summer now, and it's been unfortunately wet in the UK. So we've been missing a lot of games and spending a lot of time in the pub, drinking a lot of pints and eating a lot of tea. So it's been a good summer.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I've not done an awful lot apart from go out drinking because you can't go and barbecue because it's too wet.
Yeah.
Right. So, the plan for this evening, we'll go through. We'll start with the minor league and see how we get with it. But we'll go through each chapter, look at how they've constructed their rosters a little bit, and sort of how the contract situation's been during the year. During the last few weeks. And firstly, Sean, that spreadsheet is amazing. That is one of the best things I've ever seen. It's so good. And it makes our life a lot easier to look through what everyone's done. Because as Nathan said earlier, trawling through MFL to see who's been added is a lot of hard work. So thank you very much for that, Sean. So let's start in the PP, chapter 7. Nate, it's your chapter. Do you want to kick off with anything on there particularly?
Yeah, well, let's leave my beloved Saints for last, worst for last. So let's start with the lady of the PP, our commander in general, the Mayhem. Carla obviously is going through quite an interesting sort of phase, I think, in her sort of team. She obviously made a few trades in the off-season, sort of retooling, obviously acquiring a quarterback and letting JT sort of leave the Mayhem. But just in terms of sort of skimming through her contracts and some of the noticeable contracts, I think she had quite a good draft in the PP this year. So she picked up players like Anthony Richardson, who she gave a solid 5-year contract, Marvin Mims, who I'll come back to, 4 years, Jackson Smith and Jigba, 5 years, Will Anderson, 4 years. I don't know if she retained or she sort of tagged Quinnen Williams or won him in RFA, but she obviously gave him a good 4-year contract. So look, there are a lot of healthy long-term contracts. You can see what Carl is clearly planning on doing. And I think she had a good draft. Not many players here. I think if I'm just looking at it, only 15 players that she needed to give contracts to. So kept it sort of short and concise. And I know she sort of maximized her sort of salary cap and is up to 120 of the 120. So look, good IDP players there, decent contracts. Pete Werner onto 3, Dre Green onto 3. So I think Carla's really tooling well to be competitive for the next 2-3 years in quite a good window for her. Is there anything else that sort of stands out to you, Ross?
Yeah, she's got a really young team, an ascending team. So she's really built it over the last couple of years through the draft as well. And I think she could be challenging for the chapter title. But I look at the councillors and what he's done, and he's got sort of the opposite. He's got, I would say, an aging team, but I think he's got some really solid veterans that can get him a lot of points. Guys like Austin Eckler, Derek Henry, who maybe not going to be around the league for a lot longer. But for this year, they'll definitely have him sort of at least going for the chapter title, if not a bit further than that. And he's got some steady quarterbacks in Jared Goff and Tua. Not the flashiest, but I think he's got a lot of players who will give him like solid points. And I think it'll be between him and mayhem for the title, but it's just interesting to see that sort of the polarizing sort of ways to build a team.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. Well, any thoughts there, Mike, and sort of taking us into the councillor sort of setup there?
I was looking through the roster now, and he's got very strong linebacker room with obviously Roquan his addition this year, which he's added 4 years to. Like you said, the running backs are very strong. Harris, Henry, obviously Kareem Hunt, we were just discussing off there, possibly going to end his career in a terrible franchise in the Saints.
Off the bike.
Obviously, yeah, quarterback. Obviously, Jared Goff's steady. I don't think he's going to get pressure to be ousted at the start of the year. That may change if Hooker gets fit, but I think he's certainly playing at a high level last year for them. So, obviously Tua, maybe a little bit lighter quarterback. That might be his only downfall if Tua does, have some issues with concussion again. I think it's pretty strong. I mean, I think Carla's probably those two the stronger of the two. I think on paper, but longevity wise, there's some good talent there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, the other.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of it comes down to, is he too light a quarterback? That's my thing with them counsellors. Just having the two QBs, one which has got a history of concussion issues and missed quite a lot of time last year. When he's fit and healthy, he's got a hell of an offense to passing core to get to. So it's quite a strong team, and defensively he's pretty sound as well. I think both the Mayhem and the counsellors are very, very, very sound on the defensive side of the IDP.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I think as you say there, Mike, I think obviously at sort of
with
quarterback,
the corners and safeties as well.
Yeah, just sort of at quarterback, obviously sort of with Tua and Goff, I think what is their advantage there is that they're both playing their buys or sort of in season. So at least he's going into the off season if he gets there with two quarterbacks starting for the playoffs from sort of week 13. The one thing I did notice, sort of, and this might be a rookie thing. We'll see with the Dallas Spurs, and we'll see with sort of the Tampa Tough guys. They've left quite a lot of cap space, so he's given himself 7 years in his budget. So he's only sort of allocated 113 of his 120 years. So maybe that will sort of give him freedom to maybe be aggressive poaching, or maybe being aggressive sort of on the free agency. Maybe even look to acquire talented players. Which I think is quite interesting, and it's probably or I would love to hear your guys' ideas, but it's probably the right strategy or sort of stance to take if your team is looking to challenge, is giving yourself a little bit of wiggle room to either add the quality, lose the quality, so at least you're not sort of under the cap pressure. What are your thoughts there, Ross?
Yeah, I totally agree with your last point there. I think I like to have a little bit of wiggle room as well, especially for waivers. That sort of week 1, week 2 waivers before your guys get injured, then you open up slots by your team going on IR. I think it's essential to have at least 5 years for me. It also depends on sort of your team makeup as well. I like to have the slots open so I can pick up defensive guys. So maybe I wouldn't have as many cornerbacks throughout the off season, and then maybe through week 1, week 2, I'll pick up a couple that I like. Same with kickers, just because they're easy to get off the waiver wires. But I think there's a different areas you can add talent. Obviously, the draft, there's free agency, there's trades, and the waiver wire is the fourth one. And if you've got 120 contract years, I think you're just forgetting about that, and you're sort of losing out on the opportunity to add talent to your team. So yeah, I always like to have a bit of space. What about you, Mike? You're quite close to the 120.
Yeah, I've got 119, but I've also got Tom Brady sitting on the roster still, and I've got Robbie Gould, who is currently unsigned. So I've got a little bit more wiggle room in there. So I did think about that. I didn't want to be quite to the roof, but decided that Tom Brady's there just in case suddenly he appears in Miami or Vegas as the next quarterback. But by week 1, if I decide to pick something on the waiver wire, I can obviously let him go.
Get him in Cincinnati. Get him to the Bengals. Joe Burrow's up, mate.
Well, you never know. I mean, I don't think he will be, but I just don't want to take the risk of dropping him this week and then finding out in 2 weeks' time suddenly he's suiting up in for the Raiders or someone. So
I think that's
that was the thought process behind that one. But I think the last couple of years I've been a bit lower and had a chance. I think last year I added Sauce Gardner after a couple of weeks, which actually ended up trading away to Hadji later in the year. But yeah, I think if you've not played in a contract league before, balancing your contracts is quite a big part. You don't just max out every year. You've got to have a little, like you said, a little bit wiggle room just in case. See, in my case, I have no picks, so therefore, if I'm trading players away, so I'm actually trading space out at the same time. So that's how I'm looking at it a little bit. If obviously I go you'll see later on some contracts to players. Maybe I'll trade away Nick Bosa or someone that frees up 4 years at the same time. So 5 years at the same time. So we'll have to see. I guess there's some just looking at the Tampa Bay Tough guys. They've maybe again another possible thing that they've got both quarterbacks, Jimmy G and Lamar Jackson, out on buys in week 13. So that's the other part of this building your roster is looking at the bye weeks. And obviously you end up getting screwed because the NFL put both your quarterbacks on the same week. You've got to have a backup plan. Backup plan, I guess, is Bryce Young.
Playoffs.
Yes, yeah, just in time to really wreck you. Yeah, you unbeaten all season, and suddenly half your roster's missing in week 13. Perfect.
If the tough guys are anywhere near the top playoff, I'll be surprised.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
They'll be battling for the wooden spoon with me.
There's not really a competition with you, is it? Well, obviously you're a different thing. So you tore it apart last year, right? So you've walked away from some good players for
I'm still tearing it apart. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not. Yeah, there is a fire sale going on at the Stellenbosch Saints.
Exactly.
Obviously, you looked at, like, I know conversations last year. You looked. That's why Josh Allen went, because it would have been a case of giving him a big contract this year or getting value for him last year, which would obviously have cost you in on tags. So, but then you've looking at your roster. Sam Darnold, week 1.
I don't know. I think I'm going into the season, and I don't think I'm going to be starting a quarterback any week.
No.
Well, I guess you're hoping Colt McCoy gets the job,
which is a little bit worrying. I think if I'm lucky, Colt McCoy starts week 1 and 2, just until that offensive line is safe enough that Clayton Tune can get a run. And that's probably my best bet. If I'm also lucky, Jimmy G gets injured again, and for some reason the Raiders decide to start Aiden O'Connell, the Purdue legend, the Boiler Man, just slinging it away. No, come on, Randall.
Tom Brady.
Forget about it. Or I'm also hoping that Malik Cunningham is a wide receiver for the Patriots, but he's registered as a quarterback, so that could be interesting. But look, in all seriousness, I don't really have much of a defense. The reason why I sort of ended up picking these guys is because I'm in an absolute pure fire sale rebuild, where my pure goal and only goal this season is by some miracle to avoid pink, which I think is almost indefinite that I will be pink with that sort of squad. I just felt on just getting as many players on my team as possible. The good players I wanted to give good contracts to. So someone like Nick Bosa, I gave 5 years to. Tremaine Edmonds, who I spent a second rounder in RFA to sort of get. And then even someone like Claypool is just sort of a shot in the dark for wide receiver depth, and he's only 24 years old still. Roschon Johnson hopefully becomes something in Chicago, whether he's a backup for 2 years or something. So, but apart from that, it was more just dart throws, and I'm hoping that all these players, or at least let's hope 10%, 5%, one of these players becomes something, and then I can flip them for whatever I need during the season. And also, a lot of these guys being on shorter contracts, 1-2 year deals, makes it more affordable for other teams who are sort of pushing to win to actually take them on. So that's what I'm just investing in here, is a lot of dart throws. Like, I took all these linebackers in the draft, like Terrell Bernard and Jack Gibbons and this Christian Roseboom. I don't know who half these guys are, but half of these guys apparently had some write-up that they might be the linebacker one in their situation. So I said, why not? Come join the Saints for a season. Let's see if I can flip you for a 4th round, a 5th round, a 6th round to anyone. So that was just my thought process here. So I've got a big, busy, cluttered squad. but there is a little bit of method in the madness there somewhere. Yeah, don't dwell too much on me.
Let's look at. I mean, K Dodson, right? I mean, he showed a lot of promise last year, so he could be their next long-term tight end. So I guess it is worth a gamble.
Yeah, Kate Otten, yeah. And look, I thought he did well with Brady. Look, obviously now he's going into a situation where he's got Baker, who can't throw anything straight, and Kyle Trask, who still wishes he was playing for the Florida Gators in the SEC. But the reality is, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in Tampa. But I'm desperate at tight end. Kate Otten's probably my best tight end. So I might as well give him a long contract, and that he's one of the guys that sort of come okay. No Fantas, all right. So it could be quite tough. I might be one of the names in the hat to transfer to the RR next season if this all goes to shit. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
If you said before that this is not a 1 year plan. This is like a 2 or 3 year plan rebuild to get it back up to where you want it to be. So
yeah, look, I've got 3 firsts and 3 seconds next year, and then I've got I think 1 first and a couple of seconds the following year. So there's draft ammo that will be needing to be spent and saving up a few war bucks. So let's have this conversation in 12 months' time.
Yeah. Well, just looking, obviously, you have 90 war bucks sitting there already, waiting for next year's tags if you want to tag people. So that's always a good way of doing it as well. Yeah,
and the way Kyler Murray is going now, I think I might be saving that 100 war bucks that I was planning on using on him on the Simple franchise tag. So I might be having more than I bargained for. But yeah, I think myself and the Tampa Tough guys, we're going to have a tough season, probably me more than him. But I think in that chapter, I can't see us upsetting the apple cart too much with the councillors and the mayhem.
No, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's one mayhem or councillors. I think my money will probably go on Carla. I think, than the mayhem. I just think she's got a slightly better unit at quarterback just to get her in case there are any issues.
Yeah.
Right. Chapter 8. So the Spurs, the Raiders, the Tiger Sharks, and the Killer Koalas. Where would you like to start? Start the Spurs?
Yeah.
Put on the list.
Roscoe.
Yeah, I don't think the Spurs will be challenging for the chapter title. So you look at the other 2 guys who are probably favourites, Tiger Sharks and Koalas. But the Spurs just new, obviously, into the league, and I think he's got quite a lot of depth at wide receiver, which I like. There's a lot of startable guys, and when you look at someone's starting lineup, that's not going to be a starting lineup that they're going to be playing every week. I mean, you've obviously got bye weeks, but you've got injuries, things happen. So to have a bit of depth is definitely underrated. I think we look a bit too much at the starting lineup, but I think he's also really light at linebacker if you want to talk about depth. And that's like the key position in IDP. I think you want to be really strong at and maybe start 4 or 5 a week. But he's going to be really struggling to start 4 or 5 good ones every week. So yeah, definitely some areas of the team that are good, but I don't think he'll be good enough to be challenging because it is a strong division with our 2 teams.
Sure. Yeah. I was looking at some of the contract situations as well. The ones we're not sure about, they're on pretty short contracts. So I guess this is going to be a learning year for them just to find their feet in the league, work out what, like you said, knowing that linebackers are a very key position to have, and that's where your money needs to be. So maybe next year round he'll address that a bit more. He's very strong at running back. I'm noticing. Aaron Jones, McCaffrey, Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, there's some good talent on that side of it. Oh, I think we lost Ross there.
No, it's back.
It's back. Cool. Yes, he's pretty strong there. I mean, quarterback Trevor Lawrence on a 3-year contract. Brock Purdy, Russell Wilson. So he's fairly strong in that unit as well. Got the depth. Unfortunately, though, he has got 3 quarterbacks on bye weeks in bye week 9, which could be an interesting one. Which means he is actually starting Marcus Mariota that week, as it currently stands. So
I hope he's playing the mighty Saints on week 9.
You're currently looking for the list now. Is that your one win of the season?
Oh, damn it! I'm playing him in week 8. You are so close.
I think this is my 3rd season, Nate's 3rd season. You've been around longer. So you learn where you need to add the depth and the quality. Really, it's those certain positions you need to have a bit more depth to.
Yeah. The one thing I want to point out, sort of looking at his team, is that I noticed he did give away close to 21-year contracts, and as you say, it's a new guy, like fresh to the league, sort of rookie, getting used to the contract situation. He's only used 114 years of his 120 years, but essentially he's going to go back in to another busy RFA. But then again, if I do look at all his one-year contract players, then none of them really that I think he will desperately want to be keeping, unless it's someone like an EJ Speed, who really does break out in Indianapolis, assuming Shaq Leonard is injured further. Even Jack Sanborn, maybe. Those are sort of the two players I might have given us 2-year or 3-year contract speculatively. So look, I think the Spurs are in a good position to learn this year. They will be competitive and they will have pieces to flip out. So it'll be interesting to see what the Spurs do in their rookie season.
Yeah, there's a lot of cohesiveness, I think, there, and the handing out the 1-year contracts to the sort of unproven players. There's a little bit of wiggle room in he's still got some cap room as well, so you can add off waivers. And if you look at the strength is obviously the offense, and if you're going into the season, try to pick up players off waivers, you want it to be the defense. So I think, yeah, he's seems to be doing a good job, and I'm sure in coming years he'll be even stronger.
Yeah, cool. So it's. I mean, like every corner's on 1 year. There's large chunks of the defence that he can obviously retool and rework for next year and start again without actually costing him too much money or dumping players on contracts. So, right, next, Tiger Sharks, Shaq, the king of media.
Cool.
Raiders.
Well, I'll go ahead then. I think he's widely talked about as one of the favourites. I think in PP, that's a discussion. I think I would have him below the Killer Koalas, but I think they're both going to be sort of fighting for that top spot in the chapter there. But he's got some really strong running backs, and he's got the pass catching running backs who can put up a lot of points. And I really love Jahmyr Gibbs. I just need to say it again. I think I mention it every single time I'm on a podcast, but I think he's got a really high ceiling, and he'll give him a good rookie year. And it's a really strong offense. The defense doesn't have many holes either. And again, it's got that sort of the ceiling talent with Micah Parsons and Aaron Donald as well, who can put up 40, 50 point weeks to win weeks on their own as well. So yeah, I think he's a really strong team. One of the best in PP, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Shaq obviously knew the league to a certain extent previously, and sort of coming in, he sort of hit the ground running, taking over a decent side, doing quite a lot of good business. As you say, giving good contracts to good players. Devin Achane 4 years, Jamal Gibbs 5, Jordan Addison 6, TJ Hawkinson 5, Dalton Kincaid 5. Even Gregory Rousseau 4, Jalen Petrie 5. So yeah, I think Shaq knows what he's doing there, and he's building a strong team here, and I think they'll be looking to compete within this division. As you say, you've got Deshaun Watson and Danny Jones and Kenny Pickett. You've got 3 clear starting quarterbacks. Whether they are all quarterback ones or top 12 quarterbacks is debatable. They've all shown glimpses of that, or at least Watson and Jones have shown glimpses of that. Whether Jones can replicate it and whether Watson can return to that standard, that's obviously where the debate is. But yeah, this team is going to be a powerhouse and very competitive, especially in the PP, if not sort of hopefully compete for the overall minor future league title.
So I do think that the Steelers have a much better year this year. I think they've really worked on their O-line in the off season. I think we'll see Pickett improve. Maybe not like a Trevor Lawrence of last year. I think we'll see him growing into the role more. The game will slow down for him. He's not spending his entire time being chased around by defensive ends and tackles. So I think we'll see him maybe take a little step forwards. But yeah, looking through, flicking through the team. It's a very strong team throughout. So I think you're right. I think them, Shaq and Paul, it's quite a tough two teams in that chapter for sure.
Yeah, well, if you look at the koalas now, sort of skimming through their team, their team, I think, as Ross sort of mentioned earlier about, I think it was about Kenny's councillors team, like sort of being on the older side, and I think coming to the end of their window, really, some of the players, and that's what Paul's team is. Paul's obviously going into his third year in the futures as well. And Paul has been sort of competitive both his first 2 years, and I think he's done very well to keep the band together. And I think look, Herbert is a great quarterback to have. Tom Brady is going to be a sore miss because apart from Herbert, it's pretty messy there. QB2 for the Koalas. Baker Mayfield is their best bet as a possible sort of QB2. So I wouldn't be surprised if Paul is out there sort of talking to people who've got quarterbacks, looking at sort of trading there, because that's what he needs to really make a claim, or at least a push to be competitive and really put someone like Shaq. I think they're the pieces there. Obviously, Travis Etienne, a good running back. Kamara, after his 3-game suspension, should still be that sort of volatile with high ceiling player. Alex Mattison, there seems to be the sort of lead back there as well. Now Joe Mixon signed a new contract, so the running backs are strong. The wide receivers, he's still got Cooper Kupp if he stays fit. Look, it's a good team, and you could see sort of in his contracts, it could become quite interesting because he's given a lot of good old players sort of 3-year deals. So sort of James Conner 3 years, Joe Mixon 3 years, Jamal Williams 3 years, Keenan Allen 3 years. And I almost think that might be 1 year too many, whereas you can sort of assume that these guys might be out of a job within 3 years. You can drop them as a free agent, but if they do kick around a bit, it could get quite messy in about 2-3 years. But look, I think it's a strong squad and they'll be competing.
Yeah, he's very strong at tight end as well. Ingram and Kittle. That's quite a good, in our scoring system in our league. That's quite a good 2-man. Obviously in Juwan Johnson as well, but good 2-man lead off with those two every week if they're fit. Unfortunately, they're both on buys in week 9, so it's week 9 seems brutal this year. Everyone seems to be there's no games in week 9. Is the whole league off or something?
Common factor.
I've not looked at my buys. You're making me get a bit paranoid now, Mike. I've not looked at my buys at all for this year.
We'll get there in a minute. We'll get there. It started to be last year. Like both my starting quarterbacks were buying the same week, so I had to go fishing around early in the season. So hence I ended up sort of moving some things around last year. Ended up with Mac Jones, and obviously I've traded him away this year and brought in Lance. I got Purdy as well. So you've got a fluid. I think every time the schedule comes out, I seem to be struggling. So so something to look at, I guess. We'll get to that in a minute. Right, so that's chapter 8. So I guess we get the top 2 are going to be Sharks, Koalas, right? That's going to be the 2 in that division. We think competing for the top. Of that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we touched long enough on the Raiders, or we touched the Raiders too closely. But I think their team is sneakily sort of a bit of a dark horse, and I think that sort of stems from, I think, one of the more healthier sort of quarterback rooms, having Burrow, if he is obviously fit, which it sounds like he will be, but Burrow, Prescott, Stafford are 3 sort of top tier-ish, or at least high ceiling quarterbacks. If Stafford, again, if he's fit, sort of firing with their weapons. Nick Chubb, Delvin Cook, who knows, Samaje Perine might be utilized in more sort of pass catching role there in sort of in Denver. And I do think the Raiders will have big weeks. I think that's what they're going to put up. Is they're going to be there and thereabouts, probably on the cusp. Obviously, they're in a very difficult chapter, but I think they're going to be beating everyone outside of their chapter. Or at least if you threw this team into chapter 7, I think they're competing with the Counselors for the title. So I think don't sleep too much on Sal. He obviously knows what he's doing and getting stuck in here. But
I'm just looking at the linebacker room. Yeah,
he's got some talent there.
Defensively, that's actually a lot. Sorry, I apologise to Sal. I obviously mislooked over it earlier. that is a lot stronger than I actually thought. And he's got wiggle room on the contracts as well. I was looking, there's a lot of talent all through every position on there, really.
Yeah, it's only really his receivers that is a bit worrying. Like his best receivers, Amari Cooper, who's good, and Judy.
Judy, yeah.
But Tyler Lockett, you imagine, might take a step back this year with JSN there. And then outside of that, what you're hoping Devin Duvernay goes all right? Or
well, he had a start last year before injury. He had a good run of 2 or 3 games where he scored quite well, but I guess he's unproven for the whole season. And obviously Tony's injury history, I guess kind of you do worry a little bit on that. Van Jefferson last year had some bigger games, didn't he? When Cup went down, so I guess if his role expands.
But yeah, that's the clear weakness in this team. Like if Dalvin Cook there signs for the Jets, and then they go out and then Sal goes and aggressively trades for maybe an elite wide receiver, maybe 2 wide receivers, then his team is really talking business.
So interesting look. So Cordell Patterson, I think he'll be more of a passing back now. He'll see much more in the passing game at the Falcons now than previously. I don't think he uses with Bijan, he won't be carrying the rock as much. I would have thought. Maybe he's a change down back, but I think he'll be more the option.
I don't think there's not enough volume there. You've got Bijan, you've got Pitts, and you've got London, and I think that those 3 will be fair.
Yeah, true.
And then Cordell Patterson will pick up the leftovers.
And obviously play off Lenny. If he finds a home as well. So okay.
Nice.
So moving on to chapter 9. And we'll start with open up the Blizzard as the top of the chapter before the season starts.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best teams in PP. You just start by looking at the quarterbacks, and then he's got your Josh Allen.
Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, 2 very strong starters.
Fair play to him. He
a big thing.
Yeah, he wanted to make a move, and he came and he got Josh Allen. My team needed to make some sort of a change. I got CeeDee Lamb and a first that I haven't used yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
I mean, running backs. Montgomery will be an interesting one. When he first went to Detroit, I thought he might see more quite a big step up. But obviously, with the way the draft works, he may not see the same volumes he was seeing at the Bears previously.
Jamal Williams had a good year last year as the sort of the power back.
Yeah.
So I think he'll still be good enough. He won't have the higher ceiling, but I think he'll be good enough, and he'll be a startable guy. I think.
No. So in a way, he's probably more fantasy relevant. Yeah, actually, he's league relevant for carries and yards. So yeah, he'll score more points than he will. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess with Singletary, I think everyone's talking him up slightly. He should get a bigger role this year at the Bills as well. He's at Houston now, isn't he? I don't see. Maybe he won't on that. Sorry, I completely confused myself there.
I think Damian Pierce is the guy pounding the rock there in Houston. Singletrary's probably, if there's anything, there's a little bit of a committee there, but I can't see him being too big an influence there. And look, he's got both of them. So unless he's starting both of them, he's going to be in a bit of a predicament where he starts one and the other one goes off or starts the other. I think it might be quite tough. But yeah, I think, look, he's one of the rookies. He's left himself 8 years of contract, so he's got plenty of space. He's got picks. He can make some moves there. And as Ross said, he's got two. He's got QB1, QB2, essentially. Like, obviously, you've got Hurts and you've got a few other guys, but he's got 2 of the best 5 quarterbacks in the league, fantasy-wise as well. So he's going to be very competitive each week. He's going to start each week with a comfortable 80, 90 points in the bank and then sort of building off that. So he will be competitive in this chapter. It's not the easiest of chapters. I think the Badgers have improved. We'll get on to the Falcons have improved, and the Tremors are always competitive. So it could be a bit of a difficult chapter, this, and he's going to need his team to perform week in and week out to sort of make sure that he's pushing the top seed playoffs.
I was looking at the defensive side of it. Like the linebacker room, there's assuming Brooks comes back fit and healthy. There's some talent on there, but I guess will Rodriguez have as good a year this year for the Lions, or is he now with Jack Campbell, isn't it, who they drafted this year? Will he see slightly less of a role, or is him and Campbell now the two main linebackers at the Lions going forward? Obviously, Van Noy's free agent, so you can look at moving on from him. Obviously, outed him, so Angelo at the top. So he's got Angelo, who again will he see as much this year with Jack Campbell? Will Jack Campbell come in and start leading that defence with tackles?
I think it's a bit shaky. Part of his roster. I don't think Jordan Brooks is going to be ready, and even when he is back, I'm not sure what you can expect from him. So he's missing those sort of elite linebackers that you'd want in a sort of championship team, which I think other teams in the division, obviously Chris, maybe does.
Definitely. I think he's got 8 years in his pocket for contracts. Plus, he's got at least one free agent on that list he can obviously move on from as well. Interesting one. Irv Smith Jr. I was reading an article this morning. Apparently, this is the best tight end that Burrow's ever played with. Which, I was looking back through his contracts, through his performance earlier. He's not played an awful lot of games, so it's quite a big statement for people to make that this, Irv Smith. But in
who've they had? They've had Drew Sample. They've had CJ Uzomah.
Hayden Hurst last year was probably the best. But Irv Smith is just all potential. He's still 90% of his value is potential, and people are waiting on it breaking out. And tight ends do break out late, so we might see it. And if there's going to be anywhere that he's going to break out, it's going to be here.
But with Jamar Chase and with T. Higgins and with Tyler Boyd and with Joe Mixon,
a lot of mouths to feed. The El Presidente, Andy gave him a 4-year contract just for your Smith. So there's belief there from Andy in the Eternals. So
it's because he was once a Vikings player, and Andy's biased to all those boys from Minnesota. Next, let's get on to the Tremors.
Yes.
Yeah, so the mighty Christopher and his Tremors. Look, back-to-back PP champions. It's difficult to say anything else about this team. Right. He knows how to run a team. He knows how to win titles. He knows how to sort of put pressure on. He's picked up some good pieces in the draft. I think Will Levis, Clayton Tune, a few fly quarterbacks, Miles Sanders. He's been clever again with his contracts. He's not over-contracted many players, I don't think. So he sort of kept everything sort of within budget. And look, he's got a proper team. Look, there are a lot of question marks. Josh Jacobs holding out, sitting out. Breece Hall. Now, obviously, Ross will know the best. They're trying to get Cook in. I'm sure Breece will still run like an absolute Trojan that he is. But it might be a bit more of a committee. J.K. Dobbins having a few injury issues. So it's not going to be the straightforward road to the title for Chris this year. But the man lost Derrick Henry and competed fine last year. So that's the type of caliber I think Chris has in turning teams out. And look, you've still got Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard. I think will still be relevant. Brandon Cooks could do well. Deebo Samuel. There's a lot of upside in this team, and this team will be one of the teams that people talk about winning this chapter and competing again.
Yeah, I was looking at the wide receivers. Going slightly away from the bigger names, so Sky Moore and Khalil Shakir are both being talked. Pre-season, everyone's being talked up. But they're both being talked up to seeing bigger roles this year. Yeah, so we're interested to see how they develop and if they become bigger parts of the offense and higher scoring players. I was watching a bit in the season. It'd be interesting to sort of see if they do progress.
And they're his wide receiver 5, so. He's built a good sort of the makeup of the wide receiver room is good. He's got those veterans and Adams, Cooks, Deebo Samuel, obviously Amon-Ra is a star as well. Yeah, the Sun God's a star, and then he's got the sort of high upside, maybe not as high upside, but potential for breakout guys lower down in the depth chart. So looking good.
Then Devontae Parker, who don't see how he got. He got a new contract, didn't he, at the Patriots recently? Is that
They
right?
just love him. I don't know why. They got rid of Jacoby Myers and they've signed just absolute dross since that.
So I personally would have taken Myers over Parker as a GM. I guess when it comes out of money, I suppose, and have the contract.
What about Juju? Come on, everyone's hating on Juju. I don't even have him, and I think Juju's their number one.
Yeah, he is by default though. Like it's not through sheer talent.
And to be fair, we're talking about Mac Jones here. Mac Jones is number one. He's probably wide receiver 30 anyway.
Exactly.
Although listening to certain other members of our sort of fraternity here, he's
peanut gallery.
Jude's come back for a big season with Bill O'Brien and obviously he's having dinner with Zeke as well. Obviously that helps improve his game. So. Yeah,
Zeke's teaching him how to be a free agent. That's probably what.
He's got lots of lunches, lots of dinners, and move on. He's looking here. I think he's pretty strong at defensive end as well. Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, Greek Freak,
Alex Highsmith.
Yeah, it's a very strong defensive end room. Again, maybe a little bit like a linebacker, but he's got some big names in there.
No, I think he's so good at linebacker, like Foyesade Olorukun. He's like a guaranteed like LB1 every year. He sometimes stays healthy for all games and gets 1 million tackles. Zaire Franklin, maybe not going to be the top tier again, but he's steady every down linebacker. Same with Luvu and Cody Barton. These are like every down linebackers, and he's got like 4 good ones. Maybe he's not got 6 or 7. He's maybe not got the depth, but he's got some really strong options.
That's the thing. But I guess looking at the way the defensive end set up, if you do lose one guy for a bye week or for other issues, you start one of the other actually very strong defensive ends who, okay, the scoring won't be quite as high possibly, but as we've seen in the past, if one of these guys goes on a sack mission, there suddenly there's 30 points on the board from a multiple sack week. That's quite a big score from defensive end as well. So, yeah, obviously Cody Barton moving to Washington will be interesting as well. I guess he'll he's not. It's a new system for him, but the head coach is the next linebacker. So there's a lot of knowledge that's going to come down from the top and help him there as well. He stepped up nicely last year at the Seahawks, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's him. There's Cole Holcomb, who I'm quite high on Cole Holcomb versus Cody Barton.
Pittsburgh now, is he not?
I thought Holcomb just recently went to Washington.
I thought he's in Pittsburgh, and it's Jamin Davis as your man, competing with him.
And Jamin there. Yes, you're right. Cole Holcomb ended up at Steelers. I think he was there last year. He was the OG Redskins. He was drafted. But yeah, so that's the vacancy that Barton's obviously moving into alongside Jamin Davis. So yeah, they'll be big. And they've got Josh Allen there, or not Josh Allen, who's their defensive tackle?
Jonathan Allen.
Who's an absolute beast. So their linebackers will feed. But yeah, that IDP set up there in Washington, and also the Tremors is pretty solid. They'll be competitive. They'll be top of this chapter, I think.
Yeah, they've shown certainly since I've been in the league. Chris knows what he's doing. He structures rosters pretty well. He's keeping like earlier on the bands kept together quite a lot. So yeah, but it's quite chapter 9 is quite a strong division. I think. I mean, obviously I know that Connie's rebuilding a little bit. We'll get to that in a minute, but the Blizzard can have good weeks and be competitive. I think obviously Keith with the Cyclone of Falcons again. Is quite probably not as competitive as your division, Ross, but that's any year that could be. I mean, Chris is obviously very strong in there, but Keith's no slouch with his team either, right? He's shown a lot of time to play.
Let's have a look at
big.
Let's have a look at the Falcons. Look, the Falcons have been rebuilding. They've been in sort of the bottom tier for the last 2 years. But Keith has an absolute monopoly on Warbucks, and it's slowly starting to tell. He's starting to flex his muscle. He had a lot of draft capital this year. Let me quickly skim through how his draft went. He had the 101. Where are we? The Cyclone City Falcons.
104 as well. You got Bijan, you got CJ Stroud,
Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta. Yeah, he hits a very good draft, and not surprisingly, he's given them all good contracts. 5 years to CJ, 5 years to Bijan, 4 to Sam Laporta, 5 to Campbell. Apart from that, he hasn't really dished out too many other contracts, 3 to Ridley. But he's also at the jackpot this offseason, Keith, and he's made quite a lot of good trades for quarterbacks and added. Obviously, he's got Fields, Cousins now, CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers. He's the man with good depth and good positions here. It's really just he's going to rely a lot on Bijan carrying that running back room. And again, it's no sluggish running back room. He's got Swift, he's got Antonio Gibson, who both could be very relevant as well. But he's going to need Bijan to light it up because his team's solid. Jamar Chase, it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to be up there. He's going to be competing for this chapter. But I think next year he could win the whole thing if he plays the cards correctly, and if Justin Fields sort of kicks on after a very good year.
He's a key. He's a key to like maybe turning a good season into a championship season. If he could have like a Jalen Hurts-esque breakout, I don't think he's going to personally be that high. But if he can put up those level of points, then it would just give the Falcons a different ceiling.
Yeah,
I think the comparison between Fields and Hurts, I also believe that the Eagles were a much better team anyway. So when Hurts came into a team that was on the up and a rise and doing well, whereas Fields has come into a team where he spent most of the time sat on his arse last year being sacked or just running for his life. Which obviously then with bad O-line, you then start, your head goes, so I think, I'm hoping, I suppose, as a Bears fan, that the progression should improve as the O-line improves, the receiving core improves. So I think Fields, if he doesn't, then back to the drawing board again, and we'll still go back to passing over Mahomes in the draft and taking bloody Trubisky. But even Mahomes in a really bad offense, will he be as dominant? So I think it's an interesting way that Fields, if he grows as the team grows with the new GM, the new system, I think that could be quite, like you said, a championship winning kind of thing added to the other players he's got in there. Also gives Stroud a chance to sort of mature and grow into his role. Rodgers, obviously, at the moment, he's, I guess, fit into his new offense and threw a lovely pick to Sauce Gardner I saw on Twitter earlier on, which is a very nice catch by him. I think it's like you said, maybe he'll compete this year, not go to the whole way, but once these players start maturing, they'll should kick it on quite nicely.
Yeah, Keith's building a dynasty. That team's going to be strong for years.
Yeah, I from what I've seen of Laporta, he's got a lot of potential as well to be quite a big, strong, top 5 tight end.
Yeah. On to Connie.
Yes.
I think Connie's done well to add to her team this off-season, but I don't see her competing this year. She's obviously been rebuilding, but adding Jonathan Taylor was a big get. It was a good trade. I think it's been talked about quite a lot. But she's really struggling at quarterback in terms of proven talent. But again, if Jordan Love can pop off, then she'll have something there. Desmond Ridder, maybe if he gets a good year, they'll keep him. But I think he's gone regardless next year. So I worry about our quarterbacks, but elsewhere she's got some good young talent that will, again, it maybe won't be this year, but it'll take some time to progress with Christian Watson and just a lot of young wide receivers.
Yeah, I tend to agree. She's really turned this team around from what she inherited in a tough chapter. She's still a year or two away from hopefully being there. And she needs sort of someone like Chris's full sort of window to close a bit. It's always going to be difficult with the Blizzard because they've got those 2 elite quarterbacks. So it's really going to come down to sort of how she creates depth and winners elsewhere. As you pointed out, I think running back, there's high ceiling. It's a good sort of best ball running back situation there. You got someone like Rashad Penny who on any given week could be an absolute lights out running back, but at the same time he might only start 2 games in sort of rotation there. Kenneth Walker, I hope his health improves. Also wide receiver, she's got big play players, and I think it's gonna be another year of sort of learning for her, and it's going to be a case of sort of gauging how things sort of progress. I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, but I seem to see there might be a little bit of a salary cap squeeze. She's obviously maxed it out here. She's got Naeem Hines who's out for the season, but she obviously can't really add too much more to this team. So she's just going to have to flip or trade away, or hopefully when roster sort of cut downs come, maybe release a few free agents. But yeah, I think I unfortunately think she might be the weakest team in this chapter, but the team is heading in the absolute right direction and improving year on year.
Yeah, and I'm looking, sort of remembering some of the trades she's done. It's been more the offensive side of the ball. So I guess the next phase is start adding more talent on the defensive side, linebackers, and then getting the whole lot to progress as one. Like you said, rebuilds are sometimes quick, but more often than not, they're a slow draft, couple of trades, and you slowly build your roster up. And I can't remember how Connie scored last year in the league, but she did inherit quite a bad roster, so she's taking time to rebuild it and go through. So this as you said, there's some young talent on there, which as they mature, they'll hopefully step in and do some damage scoring wise for her.
Cool. I think onto do you want to just summarize who we just quickly through the PP? Ross, who's your PP top 3 / top 4?
Say Tremors, Tiger Sharks, and then I'll just add in Killer Koalas and the Blizzard. Top 4 in order.
Mike, any different names there? Any sort of thoughts?
I think Carla might have a sneaky year. That's the only other, the Mayhem, May, all the counsellors. But I think, the 4 you mentioned, Tiger Sharks, Koalas, Blizzard, and Tremors are the 4 sort of standout rosters. But then,
go ahead.
I think the way that Carla's building that roster, I think there's some players in there could really go off this year. So maybe she's the dark horse sneaking up on the rails there.
I sort of agree with the Tremors and Tiger Sharks being sort of your 2 sort of front runners, but my 2 dark horses are the Raiders and the Falcons. I think if Aaron Rodgers has another possible MVP year and a few of his players, his rookies hit, I think the Falcons will be big, and I think the Raiders linebackers are a lot better than we think, and I think the Raiders will be a team with Burrow and Dak. I think the Raiders will be sneaky. I think the Raiders and the Falcons could surprise people. Cool.
If Rodgers has an MVP year, Ross won't care where he finishes in roster wars.
I don't care if I'm pink. I don't even care. Rodgers' MVP year, I bet he'll win the Super Bowl. I'll guarantee it.
We can put that as like a spread bet. If Rodgers wins MVP and I wear pink, you'll don my pink for me.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even care. Don't even care.
No, it's easy. Cool. On to the RR.
Yes. So Group 10. So Chapter 10, the Group of Death, as it is most years. Probably one of the more competitive divisions. There's definitely. Should we start with you, Ross, as you're top of that list?
It's very nice. Yeah. It's very nice.
For where are you here? I think your linebackers are very overrated. You'd sell them. I'll send you an offer for that.
I think my defense is amazing. I'm so in love with my defense. Like, that was my goal of the off season because I couldn't really add any offensive talent. I'm bad at trading. I had one first round pick where I got Zay Flowers, but in the free agency I really targeted defense, and I think I've got a really strong and deep defense. So I'm hoping that'll take me to the championship, because looking at the offense, it's really, I'm struggling to set a lineup for week 1. Alvin Kamara's out, and that's really making it difficult for me. I've got Jamar Chase, Zay Flowers, Terry McLaurin, and Elijah Moore, who are all okay. Obviously, Chase is good, but then I've got Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor. Taylor's a bit wishy-washy with his injury, and at the moment I'm starting on Cordarrelle Patterson as well, which is just not giving me anything. So yeah, it's going to be a tough season, I think, but I'm hoping that my defense can win out. And I think if thinking about the contracts that I gave out, I gave the contracts to my sort of key defensive players, and everyone else is on like 1 year. So my safeties, my cornerbacks, those are replaceable guys who I can get off the waiver wire. So if I don't hold them after this year, the position rotates quite year on year, so I can easily pick up guys in free agency or off the waiver wires next year. So yeah, I think I'm set up well on defense, and we'll see how the offense shakes out.
So obviously, last off season, your biggest worry was quarterback, right? You did some wheeling and dealing. You got Tannehill. You bought Hurts in, I think, from memory as well in a trade. Is that right?
Hurts was last year, yeah. So
Last year.
Tannehill was just this off season. Sort of an add-in to the Foyt-Sadi Olokun trade. So I gave up a first for Tannehill, Olokun, Tim Patrick, and something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, heartbreak.
Yeah. It's a shame.
I love Tim Patrick. I'm so gutted.
Yeah, I thought he would contribute. I thought he'd maybe my wide receiver 5 or something. Thought he'd maybe get me some points, but yeah, it's sad.
But also, then, yeah, it's difficult when, well, as you know, pre-season players drop left, right, and centre some of the times. Obviously, there's injuries or whatever. So yeah, even at this stage, we are 4 weeks before the kick off of the season. Anything can change. What you think looks like a great roster, suddenly you turn on the news tomorrow and your quarterback's gone down, or your main linebacker's out for the year with some ridiculous injury that he's twisted his ankle, done his ligaments in his ankle, doing shuttle drills or something in training. So I mean, defense running back. I guess Taylor's, if he's back and playing and healthy, he's an amazing running back. So, but then you got assuming Henry has the same season, then you can play one or two of the running backs. Defense. I do like your defense. There is a few players I would like to have. So if we'll chat afterwards on that, which I'm sure I haven't got any assets to give you apart from players which you don't want. So that's fine. Because I have not got any draft picks now until 2027 or something. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the problem you've got is the chapter you're in. They're all very competitive teams, right? So if you start slowly, you're suddenly only 2 games back from the others at the top of the chapter. And obviously, last year's champion, the Pigskins, is that right? Yeah. I think he's just looking at what he's done here. He's kind of kept most of the band together, I think, looking at this.
Yeah, he's still got a really strong squad. Obviously, lost out on Bosa, didn't he?
Yes, to me. Yep. And then he got his own back and took who was it? It was Dre Greenlaw. So he got his own back. I was trying to keep hold of everybody last year, but yeah, he got his own back on that one. I think again, the running back room. There's a lot of guys in there, but obviously Aaron Jones and Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley. So 3 very strong players in there, and there's I'll probably have a look at someone else in there as well that's probably going to have a great year. But yeah, even those 3 you start those most weeks. There's quite a lot of points there most of the time. Wide receivers, Diggs, Evans will be interesting. Obviously, he set that multiple 1,000-year season on season, but quarterback wise this year, will he be able to get enough ball? Will he see enough targets with the quarterback? I think it'd be interesting. Debo, I really like Debo. I think he's a great player. I think he's in that Niners offense. You don't know where he's going to be, what he's going to do, jet sweeps, running back, out wide and slot. He does the whole lot on there. And I like Jalen Waddle as well. I think he certainly showed last year he's not been upstaged by Tyreek Hill. He's there to be a very major force on that side. So I'll probably miss someone there as well.
Stephon Diggs, I think, is going to have a really strong season again. Obviously, there's not really many other targets in Buffalo. That's a weakness of their offense, but it means good news for Diggs and his fantasy chances. I think he's going to get a boatload of targets again.
That is one player I do regret trading away. I must admit, did that last off season, and I don't know. I thought he might just be topping out, but he just seems to be getting stronger. So I think it was a very good addition for the Pigskins last year. Zay Jones would be interesting. Of course, he had a fairly strong year last year in Jacksonville, but with Ridley there, I guess that and Christian Kirk, Evan Engram, there's quite a lot of mouths to feed there as well. So interested to see if he sees as much. Obviously, last year was a bit of a fantasy surprise. He did a lot better than people probably predicted he would do last year. Obviously, he's picked up Kittle in the off-season, a trade with the Gators. TJ Hawkins. It's a very strong offense the whole way through. There's some very top-tier talent players in there, and defensively as well, he's very strong. So you're in for you get your hands full this year, I think, with Matt again. There's no real weaknesses I can really.
Yeah,
there's no weaknesses whatsoever.
Yeah,
I'm trying to find what to pick on him, but I can't. There's nothing really there that.
Don't entertain it. Don't entertain it. His team is average.
But then the guy, you were champion last year. You kept most of the squad together, so you should be in a very good position contract-wise. He didn't have to add too many players. Obviously, you got Barkley 4 years, Wilkins on 4 years. Drew Greenlaw, I think he's in for another big year. I think in San Francisco. I think there's a very strong roster there, and obviously he's got 4 years space there as well to look at.
I think you need to have maybe safeties, pick up some off the waiver wires. That's if we're going to be nitpicky, that's a weakness there. But again, it's one of the easiest replaceable positions on the waiver wire. So it'll be a tough one to knock him off his perch. I think he'll be contending again.
Yeah, like the linebacker room is incredibly strong. There's depth the whole way through there. So I might see him some offers for linebackers as well. I like linebackers.
Cool. Next.
Right. So I keep looking at my phone because Nathan and I are in a draft at the moment. I'm not sure it's swung back round as yet.
So on to the mighty arsenic. Okay, so Haji. What were we saying about Haji? Mike, what do you think about the mighty arsenic?
Well, I guess last year, I suppose Haji was a bit of sort of stasis. Didn't know quite whether he wanted to go and do anything because he let the roster go to someone possibly. He's kept it for another year after getting his main league team. There's a lot of talent on here. I think he picked up a few players back in the last season, like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he picked up back in the last year. Who obviously I think at Tennessee will have. So who's on the centre and how Tannehill plays, that could be a very interesting sort of number one wide receiver for them. AJ Brown, obviously, Devontae Adams with Jimmy G. Are they on the same page? I assume they will be. Running back, I guess if Hunt signs, obviously Breece Hall, Charbonnet, Dillon's obviously number 2, but I guess they're starting to do more committee backs. I think at Green Bay from memory last year, he was seeing more of the ball, and he's obviously the passing down back as well. I think it's fairly strong. I mean, Irv Smith's on here as well, so maybe he finally delivers on his sort of talent there.
What are your thoughts here, Roscoe? Are the arsenic competitor, or where they're sitting?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because the chapter's so I would say it's flat. It's not really flat because Pigskins are really good, but the next 3 teams are probably quite flat in terms of talent. I think the thing that let go Haji's probably looking for is a Russell Wilson bounce back. Because if he does, then he's got 3 really talented quarterbacks, and he's got one of the most depth at the position and RR after that. His running backs are just sort of okay. Breece Hall maybe for the first half of the season, he's maybe going to be all right, and then the second half is where he's going to explode. So you'll be hoping to be competitive for that. But I think he's got some areas where he's maybe not got the top tier talent. I would say especially on at tight end, where it's really maybe missing a game breaker. You look at Tysons, who've got George Kittle, and I've got Darren Waller, who I'm hoping to be back in the top tier. So yeah, but it's sort of nitpicking because he has got a talented roster throughout. I reckon he's got more depth than me on offense as well. So I think it'll be just maybe luck of the draw, who hits in what weeks, and maybe avoiding injuries. And he can definitely take the title again, the chapter title again.
I think his biggest worry as well is that week 13, obviously Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins on a bye. So you can get this team as far as week 13, but if he doesn't earn a bye week that week, it could be a very difficult week to get through and go for a deep playoff run. This team should hopefully be not far off sort of the top 6 in the RR. Look, we've only gone through 3 teams, but all 3 teams are solid, very competitive sides. But I think so far the Pigskins, just the pure depth, they're probably nudging it at the moment in terms of favourites of this chapter. And then it's a case of essentially yourself, the Unicorns, and the Arsenic sort of battling it out for second place and sort of a playoff berth, which could come down to scheduling and bye weeks and sort of clumping those together. So, yeah, look, it would be a shame if Haji get all the way, get the playoffs, and then due to the 2 quarterback guys sort of miss out in week 13. But that's just the way fantasy works. Sometimes it's a bit cruel. But, yeah, it's a decent side, good depth. IDP's got players there, decent linebacker room. But obviously the big one there is Rashaan Evans. Where's he going to end up? Because obviously there's 280 points right now are going to be 0 unless he signs somewhere.
Yeah,
sorry. I think he's at the cap as well for contracts. Obviously, maybe he can get rid of Rashaan Evans there, but I think he's not got much flexibility. So maybe he'll get some injuries, maybe he'll make some moves, but he does have a bit more depth than me at the moment. But I think I've got the ability to add more, and he's just at 120.
Yes, he's gone for depth over the flexibility, which obviously you've gone for the other way, slightly other way around on it. Defensively, he's got some very good linebackers in there. Bobby Wagner, Franklin, Demario David. There's lots of good players on there. So yeah, I think, like you said, I think the Pigskins are slightly in front of the rest of the 3 of you. We'll get to Aaron in a minute, but there's not a lot of difference between you 3. There's a couple of times last year, it looked like all 4 of you were getting to the playoffs, right? So that's how competitive that division, that chapter is.
Yeah, let's round it up with Aaron and Unforgiven.
Yes, the Unforgiven.
Yeah, so obviously quarterbacks there: Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, 2 steady young guys, good contracts. Running back Chubb, Eckler, Gibson, Josh Jacobs if he comes back. Like, those are already 6 top tier starters. We haven't even got to the wide receivers now, and then you sort of got Tyreek Hill, who can blow the roof off, but that's about it at wide receiver. Everyone else is sort of here and there, not much at tight end. So yeah, it is very top heavy on the running back dependency and Tyreek dependency. And then IDP side, there are bits and pieces. DT's pretty messy. Defensive end is not great. Linebacker, Frankie Louvu, Bobby Okereke, Mikael Walker could be relevant a bit, but yeah, the IDP to me, I'm just skimming through this, and that's the worrying side. I don't think there's enough depth there on the IDP side to help. I think they're very top heavy. They run by their two quarterbacks in their running back room, and if those guys aren't putting up big scores, this team is struggling to compete in a competitive chapter. And I think this is probably the weakest team in your
bye
chapter.
week's week 5 for these guys. Bye week 5. Herbert, Watson, Chubb,
Eckler.
There's a lot of big starting names out of that offense.
Ross, are you playing the Unforgiven week 5?
Let me check. But what I can say about the Unforgiven is that I think his season will go with Deshaun Watson's season. So everyone seems to be just plugging in Deshaun Watson. Oh, it's another year back. He's gonna be back to his normal self. But there's no real basis for that. It's just we're sort of all hoping. Well, I don't know if we're all hoping, but people are hoping that he's going to get back to his normal self. But he might just be lost and he might never get back to that. So I think if he has a good season, then Arne will have a good season. And if not, then, like you said, maybe he's going to be struggling a little bit with a 1.5 quarterbacks. And hopefully he does struggle a bit. And it'll be a 3-horse race at the top. But I don't know. I think it's going to be tight again. And in week 5, I've got Mongmen, so I definitely don't have.
The week 5 is Thief River Unforgiven versus the Windy City Blitz. Lovely little free pass there for Mike and the Blitz. So I think that's essentially that. Mighty chapter 10, and on to the spice rack of chapter 11. What are you saying here, Mike? Mighty chapter 11.
So again, I think 11's. I think most chapters now are quite competitive. There's a couple in rebuilds in certain chapters, but I think there's obviously starting with Tyler, because Tyler's at the top with the Warlocks. I mean, he's been wheeling and dealing pretty much all last season. He's changed a lot of players around. He sold me a broken horse in Trey Lance, I think. I got Mac. I think Mac Jones. I think will probably have a okay year this year. Obviously, he's very high on Jared Goff. From all the conversations we're listening to, but then I guess he's then hoping that Stroud gets himself into a good position quite early in that offense. The running back room. I was surprised he let memory blank.
Saquon, maybe?
Saquon, thank you. Yes.
It's always Saquon.
Yep. That's why he let him go again. But then he's got the running back room. Obviously, I guess he's looking at relying on Cam Akers and Dobbins coming back fit. And Dobbins is a player who's got a lot of talent and been unlucky with injuries. I think Brian Robinson at Washington could be an interesting one as well. There's like I said, the drop off in depth at running back as well. I guess it depends on if some of these guys like Chuba at Carolina can actually be more effective this year. And obviously Raheem Mostert the Dolphins. If Cook goes there, how much more does that affect him? If Cook goes to the Jets, that's a different story. But there's obviously a few twists and turns there to go. Wide receiver for Tyler. Well, he's got Devontae Parker.
He's got Slump Boy Thomas.
Yeah,
Michael, my man.
Yeah. He's got a couple. I think Dubs will probably have a slightly better year this year. Tyler Boyd's consistently scoring points most weeks. Maybe he's not quite in that top tier of players, but will consistently get you a few points each week.
I think Thomas and Sutton are like high ceiling players. So if they have really good seasons, they could be top 12, 15 wide receivers, especially Thomas if he gets the high volume to Olave's sort of big, deep playmaking ability. So, I think he's got a lot of players who could go either way. I think he's maybe lacking a wee bit of depth, but I think he's improved his roster a lot this off-season. He obviously talked about a couple of the trades he's done, but he's still got maybe a bit to go in a chapter who has some real contenders there. But I think he's got some players who could go either way. And Tyler, this isn't going to be the roster he ends the season with. He's going to be trading away.
It's not really the roster he starts the season with. Start. I mean, there's still 4 weeks ago. No, Tyler is very active and a good, good at tradings, and he does enjoy the process. So I'd expect a few more deals to be happening before the season kicks off there. Obviously, his biggest off-season addition was Roquan Smith at linebacker. So that gives him a lot of points on that side of the ball.
I think these linebackers are good as well. Obviously, Roquan, Devondre Campbell have a full season. Ernest Jones is going to break out. Troy Anderson's due for a breakout again, a player I really like. So, yeah, you could have a big season there at linebacker. Yeah,
and all sort of apart from Roquan on a sort of 2-3 year contract, so he's got the ability to keep it going for next year. Roquan's a bit longer. He's certainly stepped up from where he was last year. He's never sitting back and just waiting for the season to. He's looking to move and grow. When you look at some of the guys on the taxi squad as well with Keishon Butte, there's some possible talent to step up at some point if someone does try to poach someone as well. But he's at the salary cap of 120, which obviously is the difficult bit there.
Yeah,
he'll trade his way out that.
If you're in the RR, you are going right over to Nathaniel Dell. You're offering 5 Warbucks and putting him on a 1-year deal, and you are poaching the hell out of Nathaniel Dell.
Not for a second round pick. You're crazy, absolutely crazy.
212, spice it up.
It's like £120. You felt like me.
The thing is, Tyler won't take the pick. Tyler will promote him until 1 year and be in the contract situation. No, I'm overkilling there, but I think that's obviously the one aspect of maxing your contracts to be wary of is if you do hit sort of the 120 full year salary cap, is if you do have those players on the taxi squad, it is sort of a bit disconcerting. But as you say, a second round pick for either Nathaniel Dell or Marvin Mims is probably decent return. If there's anyone there, it's probably a Marvin Mims. If you sort of offering him a 212 or a late second and a 4-year deal, then maybe it's sort of worth it. But I think as you guys all sort of ticked off, he's definitely improving his side. He's still in a difficult chapter, so I think he might still be scraping the barrel there in chapter 11 with the crunch, the Rottweilers, and the Blitz. So it's going to be interesting to see how many wins he ends on the season.
You're on mute, Mike. You're on mute. Classic mistake.
Probably just as well, actually. I think he has improved. I think maybe he'll won't be challenging you for pink. He'll be above that and slightly away from those sort of conversations. Yeah, I think he's never changing roster with Tyler, so that's always good.
No, exactly.
He thinks it's fun though. There's offers flying left, right, and centre. It's always good fun to be trading the RR. It's a nice active chat division for sure.
Onto the crunch.
Indeed. So again, John's been constructing quite nicely, quietly, adding players to the team there. I like what he's done with Sam Laporta on a long contract. Tight ends take a little bit of time to bed themselves in. I do like Laporta.
I think we need to cool down on the rookie year impact. He's getting a lot of buzz in training camp, but I just can't take any tight end seriously in the rookie year. None.
They do take a bit of time. There's very few, I guess. 1 or 2 will come in and have careers from the word go. So I'll
put my head on the line. I think Sam Laporta will be a top 12 tight end this year.
Oh, come on. I'm a top 12 tight end nearly.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's no mean feat.
That's what I'm saying. That still means that he's still, he might not score big. I don't think he's going to score you 200 points. But the reality is he's going to be a top 12 tight end, which means he should be starting for whatever team he's on. So, and if that's his rookie year, you like to think it's only going to get better there. I think he outscores Dalton Kincaid.
I don't know about that. I think they'll both be like top 24, but maybe not top 12 tight ends. I'll say that 12 to 24. But we'll see. But I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to tight ends.
Yeah,
the rest of his roster.
John's quote. Yeah. Well, I think obviously Jordan Love's an interesting story. Will he, does he come in with the 2 years or 3 years of learning he's had already firing, or do you take a bit of time like some of the other rookies? Then you've got your future MVP, isn't it, with Aaron Rodgers, repeat MVP.
Absolutely.
The future MVP is Derek Carr. Thank you very much.
Baker, but he's potentially got four starting quarterbacks on that list. Assuming Mayfield gets the job, so it's good depth. On the running back side, again, he's looking for some breakouts a little bit here. I think maybe Herbert showed great promise at certain times last year. Damian Pierce, there's a lot of guys that can take that stage up. Maybe not be the top 5 running backs in the league, but certainly score good points each week.
Yeah, like Jamal Gibbs is your home run hitter there, but the rest of them are I wouldn't say low floors, but they've got set floors in the sense that I think James Cook will be competitive. I think sort of Khalil Herbert will be competitive. I think Damian Pierce. Those 3 guys are going to get enough volume to be relevant. They might not be home, and then even Rashad White. Like, you're going to have 5 running backs there that are all RB1s on their team. It's just whether or not the touchdowns are occurring week in, week out. Where, to me, Jamal Gibbs is the home run hitter. But you've got 5 serviceable running backs, which in any fantasy is worth it. So now you're talking about a team that's got definitely 2 quarterbacks, probably 5 running backs, Brandon Ayuk, Drake London, JSN, Garrett Wilson. This team's good. I think this team is very good. I think that's just looking through the offensive side. Then you get Dallas Goedert, obviously Sam Laporta, whatever you want to say about him, but you've got 2 serviceable tight ends. So I think the Crunchers offense is looking very good, and I think that they could very well be a top 6 RR team.
Well, I think there's a lot of potential, and I think he maybe needs Garrett Wilson. Sorry, I think he needs Garrett Wilson to be like wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, like to sort of have that really high ceiling. You always need like one guy to be like one of the top scorer in his position to really contend. And he's got a lot of depth and he's got a lot of good guys, but he needs someone to be really great. And I think Garrett Wilson's maybe the one you're earmarking for that. Mike's away, but I like Dallas Goedert as well. At tight end, I think he's another one who could be top 5 at his position. And then you look at the defense and Max Crosby, who's one of the best in the league. Micah Parsons, Hassan Reddick. I think he could put a lot of points. Yeah, it's a good team. Yeah.
The more I look through this team, the more I like this team. Look, it's obviously on 119 years, so I would have liked him to keep a little bit more flexibility on that salary side, just so he could pick up a few IDP sort of hitters during the season, because that is his only sort of question mark, I think, is the IDP. He's got players there. He's got Tremaine Edwards, TJ Edwards, Logan Wilson. So he's got 3 very good linebackers. JOK could be decent, very good sort of defensive ends. But there's just not depth in that IDP side. But I think we can obviously sort of move on to sort of the Rottweilers now. But if you sort of compare it to the Rottweilers, who again, they're getting all the praise here, and they're a very condensed team, the Rottweilers, but they're still a very strong team. But I still think the Crunch are going to be competing against the Rottweilers and the Blitz in this chapter. And we haven't really got onto the Blitz yet, but sort of talking about the Rotties now, you've got Burrow, Lawrence, Richardson, combined 27 years worth of the 120-year contracts. Look, Matty's obviously in for the long run here, and he's just tying these guys up to long deals, but fair play to the guy. But obviously at running back, you've got Bijan, you've got Alex Mattison, you've got Najee, you've got Etienne. There's a reason why people think that the Rottweilers, this is their year. The IDP depth is obviously something just to sort of look at. Look, I know you've got Cam Hayward, who is an elite tackle. There's been a lot of positivity on Jonathan Greenard. And then the linebackers are good, more depth, not elite. You got Fred Warner, Monty Rice, Patrick Queen, Cole Holcomb. even Jerome Baker, they've got quite high floors. David Long. So the IDP side is probably short one or two sort of elite players really to help him here. But this team as well, this team's going to be fighting deep into the playoffs, I think, on the RR side.
Yeah, and he's got 38 players, and it's part of the build-up of the team. He wants his quarterbacks to have long contracts, his sort of stars to have long contracts, so he doesn't need to pay the Warbucks and RFA. But that's where you get it on the other end, is the defence is a bit light, especially defensive end, defensive tackle. He'll be hoping to use a wee bit of the contract room he's got available to hit the waiver wire, I'm sure, and get guys there. But yeah, the offence is really, really strong and really deep, and he's been building it like since the first year. I think it's been a long journey to get to here, and I think this is his sort of dream. He's got all the Warbucks. I'm sure he's had a lot of picks over the last few years. He had 101 to 103 at one point last year, and he's using that capital to build a really strong team that will probably compete for a good while.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of star names on long contracts. So I guess at some point, if Matt decides to go with all the Warbucks saved out, the draft picks, he can make a big run one year if he wants to, attack. I guess
He's not going to do that. He's never going to pay more Warbucks than necessary. That's a problem.
But one day he may. You never know.
But I know you.
He may just go, right, this is my year. This is where I'm going all in. In which case there's the talent base to base off. I mean, 2 years' time, so his contracts are running down. He could just really go at them, or like he seems to do, is trade some players away, pick up none of the first round picks, and away he goes again. So yeah, he's always competing in there, right? I mean, even when he's not with the depth of it, he's still got enough talent there to keep competing year on year without spending the Warbucks or the draft picks. He's just keeps rotating the roster around. It's a very different way to how I do it, and I should probably possibly take some leaf out of his book about not spending Warbucks or draft picks. But we'll see how I get on with that later. I don't think that's really in my psyche, but
yeah.
And then, did I miss the blitz, or you done?
No.
Yeah.
Retreat the dogs at the bottom of the garden, just barking at the neighbours.
Tee us off with the blitz.
Rescue the dog before the neighbours came around and knocked on the door. Yes. Right, so probably one of the strongest quarterback rooms with Lamar and Mahomes, both on long contracts as well. I think that's looking at some of the other sort of the draft picks this year, like Matt does. That they locking your top quarterbacks up for a decent length of time is sort of the way things are doing it in the league. Dalvin Cook's landing spot will be interesting. That'll have, I think, a fairly big impact of how the blitz perform this year. I think Mike's been retooling a bit, hasn't he? I think he's moved some of the bigger names away. He's picked up some draft picks. He's obviously he's competed most of the last 5 years, for championships, or certainly for the high spots in the playoffs. There's some young talent he's bringing in. Rashee Rice. I think Tyler Scott with the Bears. I know obviously I'm a Bears fan, so is Mike, but I think he's going to have more of a role as the season goes on in that offense as well. Obviously, KJ Hamler being released is not ideal for him. Travis Kelce, again, he's just the guy's a beast, right? So he's a high scoring player every week.
I just think he's on the wrong team at the moment, and I think the blitz knows exactly. He's not. Mike knows what he's doing as well. Mike's just waiting mid-season. Travis Kelce's right up there, one of the elite premier offensive players, and you'll just wait until someone really wants to go and win it. You put that on any of those competing teams for the right price, and I think there will come a week, whether it's I don't know how early it will be, but there will come a stage where the blitz will need to shift him, because I think this could well be his last dance of elite level that you can get for him. Next year, look, as long as he's tied to Mahomes, he's always going to be relevant. It's just, I don't know, he can't keep doing this. And I'm sure he'll prove us all wrong. But I just feel like on his 1-year contract, I think this will be the year that that the Blitz really need to try cash in from him. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's earlier in the season than maybe some of you guys expect, really.
Yeah, I don't think the Blitz are as close as maybe you guys have made out to
He
the
also
chapter
on
title. I think
1
he's
year
a,
contract as
I think
well.
he's a bit off.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with Ross.
Yeah,
I think
like
this is the year he retools and comes back in again. Maybe it's a little step back, keep the core, keep the 2 quarterbacks, and then go again.
yeah.
obviously
The wide
defensively-
receivers are really bad. I think really bad, and like I think there's not a lot of depth across the board. Like, he's got one good running back, Tony Pollard, and then Dalvin Cook. You're hoping he lands somewhere where you get a decent volume, and then it's Travis Kelce. Obviously, the quarterbacks are going to keep him afloat, but I think he's a bit away from the chapter title. Like you said, like Travis Kelce are nailed on getting traded during the season on his 1-year contract. So we'll see what he can get in return for them, if it's maybe draft picks or some more players, young players that you could, like I said, retool and be back again next year.
Yeah.
And defensively, he's got limited depth across all the positions. He's not like he's got 5 years of space. I guess he can obviously bring, like I said, waiver wire players in, or maybe trade for some. But it looks to me like it's a down year, and then relaunch again next year. I'm not sure what draft picks Mike's got for next year, but obviously he'll be looking to maximise his income for Kelce, like you said.
Cool. On to the last chapter, the mighty chapter 12.
Legion going all the way this year, Mike.
So say again.
And the Legion going all the way this year. Tell me.
I think I'll come up just shy, but I've got nothing. I can't do anything with it. I can't. There's no way I can trade for it. Well, any way I can trade is if I'm using other players. So it would be looking to move some players around a little bit, and maybe see what I can do. A lot of my season, I think, will come down to Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. I suppose. I think if
you're gonna start that. You're gonna start that. You don't need them. You got Danny Dimes and you got Fields. You're good there, Mike. Like, it's good depth, but you just need one of them to be a starter. That's all you need. And I'm pretty sure either Purdy or Lance will be the starter, and Darnold won't be.
Well, yeah. I guess. When I traded for Lance over the season, I did think he'd come back as the QB1 in San Fran, but obviously Purdy's definitely put himself above that, and obviously depending on which story you read, Trey Lance is.
I think the only thing that I just did notice is that week by week 13 could haunt you a little bit.
Yes.
Because obviously we quite close and we sort of talk and your team is there and thereabouts. Like, you've got some serious players, even running back Connor, Mixon, Monty, Jamal Williams, Javonte Williams, then even wide receivers, Jefferson, Kupp, Metcalf, Godwin, like I'm missing, obviously serviceable tight ends, linebackers. Look, that squad is there. You've obviously maxed the salary cap. You don't have picks, you don't have Warbucks, but you've got the squad. It's now going to be about navigating it. And can you get that by in week 13? I'm not sure.
So that will come down.
Have we lost, Mike? We've lost your connection. I don't know if you're muted. Unmute. I think we're struggling with Mike there. I don't know if his speaker is unplugged or something. Yeah, no. It's coming through very faint. There we go.
I think it's just my internet connection. Don't know.
There we go. You're back.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to if they trade Lance away and Lance comes to start somewhere else, I'm really in a stronger position. I've got 2 starting quarterbacks in that week as well, but I'm working on the basis I only have the 1 starting quarterback that week in week 13.
I've got Lance as well, and I flip and hope so. I hope you're right that he gets traded somewhere, but I sadly can't see it unless he gets traded to Washington maybe. And this whole Sam Howell bubble is absolute rubbish. But yeah, I think it's wishful thinking. But as you say, I think your team's really good. And I think maybe there'll become an opportunity during the season where you can flip Danny Dimes or flip Justin Fields. I know you'd hate to do that. Like, I don't think you'd get rid of Justin Fields, but if you could maybe flip Danny Dimes right before the trade-off season to someone just to get a serviceable quarterback for week 13, that might be an option where Purdy is the lead runner and you just suck it up and say, see you later, Danny Dimes, give him to someone who's a decent team, 5-year deal. He's the big thing, and get in Tannehill for 1 week. You never know.
Yeah, I've maxed out this year. I've given some relatively not long, but sort of 2 or 3 years to look more players than maybe other people would have done. But I'm trying to think more strategically for next year's free agency as well. That I'm trying not to have to defend so many players, that I can start attacking players I want to get for, and have a bit more sort of war bucks. There's a few players I might have to tag next year as well. So I'm trying to be more thought process for the future on it. There's a few positions I still would like to add other players to, and maybe waive a while. So there's 2 current free agents on my roster with Gould and Tom Brady. So there's a little bit of wiggle room, maybe not as much as some of the others, but hopefully we can do something. And if I'm competitive, all the better. So I'm sort of looking maybe to add 1 or 2 if I can before the season starts or during the season. I don't know what do you think of it, Ross?
I think you handed out too many years to cornerbacks. I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
It's 11 years you handed out this year to cornerbacks. It's that could have gave you a wee bit more space, but your roster's good.
No years next year or the year after. I'm sorted for 3 years.
That's if those
good though.
That's if those cornerbacks stay relevant. Like, cornerback is such a volatile position. Like, people love Jay Alexander, people loved Marshawn Lattimore, people loved Jalen Ramsey, and they're not as consistent. So it's something it'll be interesting. I don't think it'll come to bite you in the ass, because
I know you and I spoke about it at length. You and I spoke about it at length, I suppose, over the last few weeks, months. So yes, I know you weren't the biggest fan of what I was doing, but what did it anyway? Yeah,
I think you could be in trouble at linebacker as well with Jordan Brooks. And I know you're eyeing up my linebackers, but I think that's maybe your one area of weakness, I would say, is the depth at linebacker. But your defensive ends are like unbelievable. You've got the Bosa brothers, you've got Josh Allen, Myles Garrett, even Quitty Pay, I think, is in for a breakout season. So, you need to start more defensive ends than linebackers, I think, this year.
I think that this was part of the thing. It was like,
and cornerbacks.
No, I only started one of those.
No, I'm teasing.
I think I think obviously with the defensive ends, like if Brooks isn't back playing, I can obviously play the Bosa brothers and Garrett. There's not. I'm not feeling like I'm having to struggle to play. Yeah, they can have obviously big. A lot of the guys will get multiple sacks a game at times. Nick Bosa is a beast at times. Garrett, if these guys do kick on, obviously Von Miller. I was a bit hurt with the positional change of Zavon Collins. That's what's kind of messed me up a little bit at linebacker.
Yeah.
But obviously that's out of my control. I've now got happily in the market to look at a linebacker. Maybe I have to let Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa go to get a quality linebacker in. But at least the players I've got, they've got a value to trade away. They're not just 1 year players that have got no value to them. So hopefully that's a good thing. And defensive tackle's not bad either. I think I'm quite happy with that group of players.
With Aaron Donald, yeah.
And Javon Hargrave had massive years last year, massive weeks. Yeah,
so Donald's finished. That's the only reason I let you get him. He's finished.
Yeah. I'll be cheering him on. In September when I see him play the Niners. Don't worry. Might even buy a Donald shirt just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Good one, yeah.
No, good little side. So now on to the Mung Men. On to Corbin. Yeah, sort of skimming through Corbin's side here. Quarterback Tua, Bryce Young, Kenny Pickett. Obviously a lot rides on Young and whether he's able to sort of straight away going into being productive, scoring a lot of points. He does need Kenny Pickett to also step up. Tua, we know Tua is good. Tua is a great player, but his fitness is also questionable. So you're in a situation where 3 starting quarterbacks with 3 mediocre to upper quality quarterbacks, but a lot depends on their situation. Running back is not the prettiest. You're obviously hoping Devin Achane becomes something. You're hoping Kenneth Walker's injuries aren't too bad, and you're also hoping Josh Jacobs sits out for the season and they let Zeus pound that rock there, Zamir White. But that's obviously big ifs. Wide receiver, CD Lamb I've obviously got CD Lamb as well, and I love him to bits, but the Sun guard, Devontae Smith, that's sort of your strength on the offensive side of things. Defensive tackle, IDP is looking all right. There are enough startable players here. But this is just sort of a bit of I hate to say it, Corbin, but just quite a mezzanine team, sort of a mid-tier team. It's not a great team, but you'll probably finish with 4, 5, 6 wins, sort of maybe around the 0-500 mark. You're obviously up against the Legion twice. The Gators are rebuilding, which might be a bit of a saving grace, and I'm not sure how good the Puffins are this year, but the fact that maybe you're in chapter 12, you might get away with a few more wins than you expect. But I don't know. I don't know about you guys. Maybe ask Ross first because he's in a different chapter, but I'm not the biggest fan of this team. It's neither here nor there for me.
I think it's maybe a bit better than I think it's a bit better than you think it is. I think obviously a lot rides on the quarterbacks, and if you can get Tua for a full season, going at the rate he was at last year, that's like a top 5 to 10 quarterback easily. And then you've got Pickett, who's hoping to take a leap, and then Bryce Young, who's a bit of a wild card. You don't really know what you're going to get in year 1 from him. I wouldn't expect much, but if you do get startable weeks, and then that really bulks out his sort of offensive side of the roster. He's got those 5 wide receivers they're good with sort of Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith. They're like top 10 wide receiver potential. Maybe not. I like them. So yeah, I think he's got a little bit of potential, but yeah, he's in an easy conference. In terms of Gators and Puffins, I think that's 4 wins he'll be looking to get, and I think he's a good coach. Would you call yourself a coach? He's a good owner. He's a good owner, so I think he's a good owner, so he'll be able to pick up some decent guys off the waiver wire, particularly in defense. So I think he'll be competitive. And yeah, again, fantasy football, a bit of luck here and there, and he could find himself winning the chapter. I don't think it's out of reach for him.
Well, last year he took it right up to the wire with me, so he was very competitive last year. Like, obviously, being in our division helped a little bit. Obviously, last year both Sean and Mike were both rebuilding, so I think Sean's. Let's see in a minute. I think Sean has improved his roster from last year as well. So I think there's obviously maybe not as easy. It wasn't last year. Not as easy is the wrong word, but there was obviously quite a disparity between like the Gators just sold kits all recently. He's obviously trying to rebuild, but obviously Sean's been adding more players to it in recent weeks, months. So I think it's not as I don't know. I think Corbin will push for the title. I think this year, as much as I think I like my roster, I think Corbin's got some good players in there that can pick up the wins. And I don't know who's playing from the other divisions, but you know, if I get a run of all your chapter, Ross, I could be 0-3 for those 3 weeks. It's because obviously that's how competitive it can be. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I think him, Corbin and I will compete hopefully for that top bit of the chapter. Hopefully, on there, but we'll see.
Yeah, looking at other teams and looking at Gators, I don't think there's any chance he's going to be competing for the title. I think he's done a really good job of adding sort of young talent, and especially at wide receiver, he's got a lot of young guys who will develop and will be good for him in the coming years. But if you just look at the quarterbacks and think he's got no chance, just looking at the first position with Sam Darnold and Sam Howell, who may turn out to be starting quarterbacks, but he's just not really got a chance to be anywhere near the chapter title.
The Gators and I have got the same same game plan here. It's all about Caleb Williams. That's all we're going for. The 101. I'm assuming the Gators have their own first. Otherwise, it'll be an absolute travesty. But that team is. I'm hoping as a pink favorite right now. I'll put the Saints as pink favorite. I really, really hope the Gators struggle off the bat here and come join me scrapping for 1 or 2 wins this season. But I unfortunately think their team is slightly better than mine. It's a sad affair for the Saints, but yeah, we all know what the Gators are. They're going to be rebuilding here. They've got a few pieces to build around. Obviously, Jordan Addison this year. They sort of obviously you hope Sky Moore breaks out. Chris Olave, obviously, I love him to bits. Michael Pittman, Jaden Reed is getting a lot of positivity, but then again, the Packers are obviously very tied to sort of Jordan Love. And they already had 2 good rookies break out last year, and Watson and Dubes did all right. So, yeah, Dalton Kincaid is a good pickup from the Gators, and I think he will sort of add value. But yeah, on the defensive side, Jalen Phillips is a nice piece. I like Jalen Phillips, Greg Rousseau. There's not much there at linebacker. Obviously, Drew Tranquil now in Kansas could go either way, really. There's a lot of cap space there, so maybe he does some more wheeling and dealings. But very selfishly, I think myself and the Gators are going to be the real pink candidates, along with maybe hopefully Tyler gets dragged in if he has a meltdown of a few trades.
Well, yeah, I think Mike knows what he's doing. I think Mike last year he sold Kittle, he Kelsey, Brooks, Foyesade to you. He's moved players on. He's been getting the picks and young players in. So I think I think Mike knows where the progression is and how he wants to restructure. It's a bigger rebuild than what the Blitz are doing. The Blitz are just kind of retooling a few more players in it, whereas Mike strips it back down. I mean, the quarterback room's Sam Howell, basically, isn't it?
I think it's worse than mine.
So obviously, it's a difficult start, but he's got lots of decent young wide receivers on longish contracts. I guess he can start building around those to start bringing it forward. So
yeah, and then finally onto the Magic Puffins.
Yes, last but not least,
Shauna, our coding hero. Gino, Jimmy G, Desmond Ridder. They're your 3 starters. That's all you need.
Yep.
Running backs a bit scarce. There are a lot of names that this running back room about 3-4 seasons ago would have been an absolute machine, powerhouse. Zeke, Foreman, Fournette, McKinnon. You would have had absolute huge weeks, but obviously you've got a couple of free agents, so Shauna needs them to sort of land in the right place. Wide receiver, I like Burks, I like Judy. About the rest of it, sort of Wandell, Christian Watson. There's not much depth there offensively, so I think they'll struggle to put up big points. Defensively, they've got a few guys that can score big. Your Grover Stewart, your Sealers. Defensive end, your TJ Watt. Hopefully he's sort of back fully fit. Linebacker, there's not much. So I'm not sure. I think there were a few interesting trades with Sean during the season. I think he went and got, was it TJ Watt that he traded for?
Yeah, on a 1-year contract, yeah.
And so there are a few sort of interesting moves by Sean, and it'll be good to, again, I think we should, whether it's us or whether it's Sam or whether it's one of the other guys, they should get him on a pod and actually dive into what his thoughts are with this team, because his trades are saying one thing, his squad's saying the other thing, and who really knows. But if you, Sean, surely you're thinking of sort of rebuilding here, because I don't know, to me it's not very pretty.
I think last year he was looking to bring in younger talent or picks. I mean, you look at the contract situation, he's only using 96 years. He's got 48 players on the roster. There's not an awful lot of long-term commitment to a lot of players on there. I mean, I think he brought in Judy in the off-season, another young with long contract. But the quarterback room's fairly settled for this year, I suppose, with the 3 starters: Jimmy G, Ridder, and Smith. I guess you can kind of start moving around those. Obviously, Gino's only on a 1-year deal. He sold Derek Carr, I think, a couple of weeks ago in a trade. So I think, again, a bit like Mike and and Tyler and Mike the Blitz, they're trying to rework some of the players and rosters round. So be interesting to sort of see. Obviously, he did inherit a relatively poor, a very poor roster last year when Sean came in. So I guess you're walking into it. You've got a 1, 2, 3 year project of progressing as you go along. So I guess TJ Watt's got value in the season as well. It's 1 year contract, but you can get some draft capital back for him during the close season. During the season, you can add that to retool for next year as well. Add more youth and whatever to your side. So
when you skim through it and you look at sort of the scores from last season 2022, and your best player was a rookie safety, you know that you're in a little bit of trouble.
Yes. But you got to start somewhere, and I guess you got to add where you can. Obviously, last year at different points, he had Cooper Kupp, he had DK Metcalf. There's players moving through, which he's picking up draft capital splits for. So I guess he knows he wants to. Like Nathan, it's not about the 23, it's about 24, 25 or 26 when you've got those players that you're drafting and bringing them in. So, interesting going forwards if he can keep bringing the youth in and recycling some of these players around. In 2 years' time, it's very different conversation. Suddenly they've got all the young up and coming stars are on there.
It's the one sort of comparison that I've noticed compared from the PP versus the RR. I think in the RR they're clearly two very bare teams, and I would put the Puffins as one of them. So I would put the Puffins and I'd put the Gators there. You've obviously got a couple of retooling sides, like you say, obviously the Blitz, and you would argue that Tyler sort of is rebuilding / relatively bare. Like on the PP side, I think apart from my side, everyone's sort of in a middle tier. And then you would say back to the RR, I think there's some premium teams in the RR, whereas in the PP, they're not really that premium side. There's quite a clear cut in sort of tier in the RR, whereas in the PP, there's myself and then almost like 1 or 2 tiers where I think it's a bit more clear cut in the RR. And I think that's going to be quite interesting to see at the end of the season how it sort of plays out, whether it's more difficult sort of competing against the better sides, or when everyone's sort of level, everyone's going to have sort of a similar sort of outcome and record. But I think
I think that's down to the stability in RR. There's a lot more stability, so you've got owners whose plans are now coming to fruition, or they're in a second phase of the development. Like Mike, the Gators, Mike is in a second phase. He was obviously contending, and now he's rebuilding. You've got Puffins who have just inherited a bad roster. Now they're rebuilding, but you've got obviously Rottweiler's Matt, who's now his plan is coming to fruition, and you've got other guys there. So I think the stability in RR really helps. Have people have clear plans, whether they're rebuilding or competing.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because obviously in the PP, I think we've had a dispersal, 3 years back to back, since my year. And as you say, whenever there's a dispersal, it all evens out again. It's not really a clear sort of strong team, because there were some powerhouses, like you think sort of the old sort of Steel City Devils. They were a very strong team, and then Leone's team got sort of torn up a bit. And then even last year you had sort of Nick pop in with the Tyrants, and you had Sam's Panthers, which was sort of ready to go, and those got split up. So it has been very clear how all those teams have sort of shared the goods, whereas, as you said, they're quite clear plans in the PP. I mean, in the R, sorry.
Yeah, because apart from Sean, everyone's been there at least as long as I have, if not longer. So Sean's only Corbin's the same year as me, the Crunch the same year as me. You guys are 5 years in. So there's a lot more longevity to some of the rosters. So does make things
a clear identity.
Yeah. Definitely.
Anyway, so who I'll kick off, because I'm not part of the RR, and I'll give you my top 4 here. But I think obviously we reckon the Piggies are up there. Ross, I like yours. I like the Arsenic, but I still think it's between the Piggies and the Rotties And then to me, my dark horse is the Crunch. I really like the Crunch's team for some reason. And I know it's like annoying me, but I just, and I don't know why it's annoying me. I just think it's quite left field. But I think that Crunch team is going to, I think it's going to upset quite a few teams. And I think they could well beat the Rotties in that chapter, or at least go on a bit of a playoff run, I think.
Yeah, I think the Rottweilers are number one for me, and then probably the Pigskins. But I think Rottweilers is their championship to lose, putting the pressure on Matt now.
Yeah.
I see what you mean with the Crunch, but for me, I think there's too much potential there rather than solid veteran points. So I think too much needs to break right for him. I don't think every single person is going to break out, but you could see it. One or two guys become superstars and he's contending there. But yeah, for me, it's Rottweilers number one with a bullet.
I'd probably, I mean, the two Mats are the two that we're definitely chasing in there. I think. Hadji, you, Aaron, I think you've all got a potential to have big seasons as players, and it can definitely carry you up to the biggest heights. I think I like the Crunch as well. I think there's like you said, if it goes right. I mean, last year he had an awful lot of very close ties in weeks that he won matches where other people would have not. So he's obviously got a plan and knows what he was, how he's picking players. And okay, there's a bit of luck. It's all a bit of luck for us anyway. As much as we pick our best players, they need to turn up and play on the field at the same time. So, I mean, I won't pick myself. That's not fair.
I just think the one thing about the Crunch though is the Crunch have got enough. They've got enough young players to trade and go all in if they wanted to. Like your running backs, like your Rashad White, or James Cooks, your Jamal Gibbs, even your Khalil Herberts. They all hold value for the next 2-3 years. At quarterback, if Jordan Love starts well, you can flip him if Derek Carr and Rodgers are playing all right. And then even if Mayfield starts, then even at wide receiver, Tony, Garrett Wilson, JSN, even someone like Alec Pierce, he could well beat Pittman Jr. to sort of the wide receiver one there in Indy. He could. You never know. Like I've got Pittman Jr. I hope it doesn't happen, but I do like Pierce. So to me, the Crunch team is young, but I don't know. There's something I like about it. I'll be following John very closely.
Good, perfect. Right, so that was a lot longer than we expected.
Yeah,
maybe we should try and do. Yeah, definitely off to bed now. It's 10:30 on a Monday night school night. So, thank you very much, everybody. If you have made it this far in the podcast, thanks for listening, watching. Guess we'll see how we get on with some of these predictions, and speak to you all soon.
Cheers.
Yeah.
See ya.